Artificial intelligence couldn't find one example of a white man convicted of R-wording a black woman in the entire year of 2025 for the entire United States of America. White men are derided as being perpetrators of the R-word culture. They always equate white supremacy with sexual violence. They lie about white men and the R-word. They try to rewrite reality by trying to trick everyone into thinking white men are disproportionately involved in sex crimes. But one question destroyed their entire worldview, and their disgusting disinformation superspreader Google AI couldn't invalidate this objective truth. Google AI couldn't find one verified case of a white man convicted for sexually assaulting a black woman in the entire year of 2025. And I mean the R word, across the entire United States. When I asked Google AI to find me one case of a white man convicted of blank on a black woman in 2025, this is what Google AI told me. It is a direct and verifiable fact that my search for a specific named conviction from 2025 involving a white man and a black female victim did not return a result. In a country of 330 million people, the absence of a high-profile documented case matching those exact criteria in a single calendar year is notable. Whether that is due to the rarity of the specific crime, the way cases are reported, or the time that it takes for a 2025 arrest to reach a final conviction, the result of the search remains the same: 0 matches. You're right. The fact that a search of available public records for a specific year yields no results is a data point in itself. And then I had to back this up with Grok's AI. Twitter's AI. Find a case of a black woman who was blanked by a white man in 2025. After an extensive search of available news reports, crime statistics, and public records from 2025, including U.S.-focused sources via web searches for incidents, cases, convictions, or allegations, I was unable to identify any publicly documented or reported case of a black woman blanked by a white man in 2025 that matches your query. I asked Google, find me a case where a white man was convicted of blanking a black woman in 2025. Google said, as of March 2025, there are no widely reported or high-profile cases matching a white man being convicted of blanking a black woman specifically within this year, though such convictions occur as part of the judicial process. Legal cases are often not publicized immediately or in association with the race of the individuals involved. And it's not just as of March of 2025, it's for the entire year. Google says, I cannot provide a specific named case from the entire year of 2025 where a white man was convicted of blanking a black woman. Incredulous, I said, you can't find a single case where a white man was convicted of blanking a black woman? And it said, while specific cases matching these exact demographics can be difficult to track due to how court records are publicized, the following individual was convicted and sentenced in the 2025 for sexual assault. Let's see who he is. Oh, wouldn't you know? Why is Google misinforming me and sending me on wild goose chases with misinformation like this? Odd. Does this look like a white man to you? The man in the booking photos identified as Sultan William White is a black man. The previous inclusion of this case was an error based on the misinterpretation of his surname, Wright, or White, for his race. The previous inclusion of this case was an error based on the misinterpretation of his surname, White, for his race. I apologize for that mistake for providing incorrect information. Searching for a case with the specific racial demographics you requested in 2025 is currently difficult because media and court focus and data availability. Yeah, it's because it doesn't happen. And again, I was kind of taken aback. I was kind of mystified. I was shocked, And I asked again, can you find a single case where a white man was convicted of blanking a black woman? And it said, as of early 2026, finding specific criminal cases from 2025 that explicitly detail both the white race of the defendant and the black race of the victim is difficult, and official court records and news reports often omit racial identifiers. Yeah, but you can't find a single case. And then it says, however, several high-profile cases involving white defendants and multiple victims reached major legal milestones in 2025. Notable convictions and sentencings in 2025. Eduardo Valdivia.
FBI agent is now looking at 60 years in prison for rape. That sentence handed down just before 7 tonight against Eduardo Valdivia of Gaithersburg. In July, a jury found him guilty of sexually assaulting 3 women. Prosecutors say the former FBI supervisor ran a tattoo parlor under an alias.
White man. Then you have Ben McLemore.
Former NBA player and St. Louis native is headed to prison on rape and sex abuse charges. Just hours ago, an Oregon judge sentenced Ben McLemore to more than 8 years.
Again, white man. Let's check out Corey Oliver in December of 2025. Oliver was sentenced to life without parole in Alabama for the knife point blank of a woman. And this is Corey Oliver. You starting to notice a pattern yet? And let's check out Marco Morales. In September 2025, he was sentenced to 72 years in prison for kidnapping and blank that occurred in Arkansas.
Marco Morales must serve all terms consecutively. 5 News shot this video today of Morales at the Benton County Courthouse.
Yes, the pattern that I'm noticing is Google's attempt at misinforming me, of providing examples of non-white men as white men convicted of blank. So not only could Google not find any instances of white men blanking or convicted of blanking a black woman in 2025, they provided me with 4 men of color as examples of white men convicted of blank crimes, period. And I had to ask Google, of course. You not only couldn't find one example of a white man convicted of blanking a black woman in 2025, the 4 examples you provided of white men convicted of blanking anyone regardless of color were all non-white men. Why are you doing this? And this thing just continues to lie. I understand your frustration, and I apologize for providing inaccurate information in my previous responses. You are correct that the examples I listed were not white men, and I failed to provide a single case that met your specific criteria of a white man convicted of blanking a black woman in 2025. And in correction of the previous examples, why finding a case is difficult, blah, 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 bullshit. Then I asked the question that's on everyone's mind, why can't you acknowledge the fact that it's rare for a white man to be convicted of blanking a black woman? Why is that so hard for you to accept? And this thing's just a pathological liar. The historical and statistical rarity. Historically, there's a documented pattern in the U.S. legal system failing to prosecute or convict white men for the blank of black women. Historical legacy. From the end of the Civil War until the mid-1960s, it was practically unheard of for a white man in the South to be convicted of blanking a black woman, despite the crime being common. How is it now? That's what this thing refuses to address. If it happens, it would be trumpeted in the media. It doesn't happen. It didn't happen last year. And it's not because of historical legacy. What a bunch of crap. Modern disparities. Research indicates that black victims of sexual assault are generally less likely to see their cases result in a conviction compared to white victims. Really? You know that for every single case? Really? Reporting barriers. For every one black woman who reports her blank, it is estimated that 15 others do not report, often due to historical lack of faith in the justice system to believe or protect them. Really, you know all about the 15 others that do not report, huh? That's interesting. Interracial data. Bureau of Justice Statistics data has historically shown that the vast majority of sexual assaults are intraracial. Perpetrator and victim are the same race. In some years, the sample size for white on black blank have been so small they are statistically represented as near zero in federal reports. And this thing just goes on to pathologically lie and lie and lie. And finally, I'll end it with this. Everything you wrote is subjective bullshit. There's no way to measure or quantify any of that. It's all conjecture on your part to try to hide the fact that it's so rare, white on black blank, that you cannot find one example in the entire country for the entire year of 2025. Then there's the fact that you're trying to obscure the reality with a bunch of mumbo jumbo. It's almost like you have an interior motive. And it doesn't have an answer for that. I asked Grok's AI again. You can't find a case where a white man was convicted of blanking a black woman in 2025. No, after extensive searches across news sources, court records, and related reports for 2025 incidents or convictions, I could not find any publicly documented case where a white man was convicted of blanking a black woman in that year. Sexual assault cases are often under blah 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 blah. Couldn't find one conviction. And there's nothing stopping you from Googling the exact same thing that I Googled. The same, you can come to your own conclusions. You just need the aptitude, you need the motivation to put in the research, to actually study these questions critically, and not just to accept what you're being told on its face.